The day started with the smell of hospital antiseptic and the soft hum of machines. I hadn't slept in 2 days. My eyes burned, but I couldn't leave the incubator. Every time my baby's breathing slowed, my heart clenched as if the world might stop right there. He had come early, 5 weeks too soon. His lungs weren't ready, and the doctors said the first 48 hours were critical. I had thought my husband, Ryan, would be here, holding my hand, telling me everything would be okay. But when my water broke, he wasn't even in the city. I had called him once, twice, 3 times. No answer. I texted, "The baby's coming. Need you." Still nothing. The ambulance ride was a blur of flashing lights and nurses shouting. When I got to the delivery room, I told myself maybe he was on his way. Maybe traffic. Maybe his phone died. I still had hope, until my sister pulled me aside an hour later, her voice low. "You need to see this," she said, handing me her phone. There it was. His smiling face on Instagram, standing under a tropical sunset, holding a glass of champagne. The caption read, "Best trip ever with the best company." The best company was his ex-girlfriend Melissa. The one he swore was just a friend now. My hand shook so badly I almost dropped the phone. My baby was born 2 hours later, weighing barely 4 pounds. Ryan still hadn't called. I told myself not to cry. I told myself I was strong enough to do this without him. But as I sat there in the NICU, listening to my son's fragile breathing, I felt something inside me shift. It wasn't just hurt anymore. It was rage. Cold, sharp, and steady. The nurse came in quietly to check the monitors. "He's doing okay," she said softly. "Just keep talking to him. Babies know their mama's voice." So I whispered stories to him. Stories about how much I loved him, how we'd go to the park when he was better, how I'd never leave his side. But inside I was making another promise. Ryan would pay. At first I thought about confronting him directly. Screaming at him. Throwing his things out. But that felt too small. Too easy for him to brush off. I wanted him to feel what I felt in that moment. Abandoned, humiliated, powerless. I didn't know exactly how I'd do it yet, but I knew it would have to be something he couldn't escape from. Something public. When I finally got a text from him. "Sorry, no service on the ship. How's the baby?" I stared at it for a long time. My thumb hovered over the screen. I wanted to write, "The baby's fighting for his life and you're sipping cocktails with Melissa." But instead I typed back, "He's okay. Enjoy your trip." Because if there was one thing I'd learned that night, it was that the best revenge starts when the other person thinks you're not planning anything at all. But then, a message popped up from an unknown number. Just 4 words that made my stomach twist. "You don't know everything." I stared at the message, my fingers frozen above the phone. "You don't know everything." The number wasn't saved in my contacts. No profile picture. No name. Just those 4 words hanging on the screen like a shadow. For a moment I thought maybe it was spam. Or a wrong number. But my gut told me otherwise. My gut told me this person knew something. I typed back quickly. "Who is this? What do you mean?" 3 dots appeared. Then disappeared. Then nothing. The NICU was quiet except for the soft hiss of oxygen flowing into the incubator. I looked down at my baby. His chest rising and falling under the thin blanket. My mind was spinning. Was this about Ryan? Melissa? The cruise? My sister walked in carrying 2 paper cups of coffee. "You okay?" she asked, passing one to me. I nodded, even though my insides felt like they were on fire. "Yeah. Just tired." She sat beside me. "Ryan texted yet?" "Yeah," I said slowly. "Just once. Asked how the baby is." She rolled her eyes. "Wow. What a father." I sipped the coffee, my hand shaking. I wanted to tell her about the message, but something held me back. I wasn't ready to share it yet. Not until I knew more. That night, I stayed in the hospital's family room, the recliner digging into my back. I kept checking my phone, hoping for another text from that unknown number. At 2 a.m., it finally buzzed. This time it was a picture. It was Ryan on the cruise ship at the pool. Melissa was sitting next to him in a bikini, leaning into him. But that wasn't what made my blood run cold. It was the hand. Ryan's hand was on her stomach. And written across the photo in red text were the words, "She's pregnant." My heart pounded so hard I thought the nurses might hear it down the hall. Pregnant. Melissa. Felt like someone had punched me in the chest. The air left my lungs. I typed furiously. "Who are you? Why are you sending me this?" The reply came fast. "Because you deserve to know the truth before it's too late." My first thought was that it had to be fake. Someone was trying to mess with me. But the photo looked real. Too real. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. The betrayal I had felt before was nothing compared to this. Not only was he with her. He had given her something that should have been ours. I went back to my baby's side, my hands trembling as I touched the glass of the incubator. "I'm going to protect you," I whispered. From him. From all of them. The next morning I made a choice. I wasn't going to confront Ryan yet. Not while he was miles away. No. I was going to let him come home thinking everything was fine. Because when the time came, my revenge wouldn't just destroy his vacation. It would destroy everything he thought he had. But just as I was forming my plan, another text came. "Meet me tomorrow. Have proof." And the location they sent. It wasn't far from our house. The text replayed in my mind all night like a broken record. "Meet me tomorrow. Have proof." I didn't tell my sister. I didn't tell the nurses. I didn't tell anyone. It felt like this was something I had to do alone. The next morning, I kissed my baby through the little gap in the incubator. "Mama will be back soon," I whispered. "You just keep fighting." I told the nurse I had to step out for a couple of hours and promised to be back before visiting hours ended. My legs felt heavy as I left the hospital. The address the mystery sender gave me was in an older part of town, where the buildings were close together and the paint was peeling from the walls. I parked my car on the street, my eyes scanning for anything suspicious. A small coffee shop sat on the corner. The kind of place with fogged-up windows and the smell of burnt espresso. I walked in, and that's when I saw her. She was sitting in the back, a baseball cap pulled low over her eyes, a hoodie hiding most of her face. She looked up when I approached and gestured for me to sit. "You're the one who's been texting me?" "Yes." She nodded. "Name's Ava." I didn't recognize her. "How do you know Ryan?" Her lips pressed into a thin line. "I work on the cruise ship. Melissa. She's been bragging to some of the staff. She doesn't know I know you, but I overheard things. Ugly things." She reached into her bag and pulled out a small flash drive. "Everything's on here. Photos, messages, videos. He's been seeing her for months. He paid for her cruise ticket. And," she paused, her eyes softening just slightly, "she's really pregnant." My stomach twisted. I wanted to slam my hands on the table, to scream, to break something. But I kept my voice even. "Why are you helping me?" Her eyes darted around the shop before meeting mine. "Because I've been where you are. And no one helped me." I stared at the flash drive. Part of me didn't want to see what was on it. The other part needed to see it. Needed the pain to be real so I could turn it into something sharp enough to cut him down. "I'll take it," I said finally. She slid it across the table, then leaned in closer. "Be careful. Ryan's not who you think he is. And Melissa." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "She's worse." I frowned. "What do you mean?" But before she could answer, the bell above the coffee shop door jingled. Ava's eyes widened. She grabbed her bag. "I have to go." And just like that, she slipped out the side door, leaving me with a tiny piece of metal that felt heavier than anything I'd ever held. When I got back to my car, I noticed a dark SUV parked across the street. Engine running. Tinted windows. It didn't move when I pulled away. That night, back in the hospital's family lounge, I borrowed my sister's laptop. My hands shook as I plugged in the flash drive. Folder after folder popped up. Dates, locations, screenshots. The first photo was of Ryan in our kitchen, taken from outside our window. The second was worse. It was him and Melissa, in our bed. And then I heard footsteps in the hallway behind me. Low. Deliberate. I closed the laptop, my heart hammering, and turned. I turned, my pulse thudding in my ears. A man stood in the doorway. Tall, broad shoulders, wearing a black hoodie with the hood pulled up. His face was shadowed, but his eyes, sharp, cold, locked onto mine. "You're up late," he said in a voice so calm it made my skin crawl. I gripped the edge of the table. "Can I help you?" He took a step closer, hands in his pockets. "You met with someone today. A woman." My stomach clenched. "I don't know what you're talking about." He tilted his head, studying me like I was a puzzle he was trying to solve. "It would be unfortunate if the wrong information got into the wrong hands, especially for a new mother." Every instinct in me screamed danger. I forced my voice to stay steady. "I think you have the wrong person." A slow smile crept across his face. "I don't think I do." We stared at each other for a long, tense moment. Then he stepped back. "Enjoy your evening," he said before disappearing down the hallway. I stayed frozen until I heard the sound of the elevator doors closing. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely pack up the laptop. Who was he? Was he connected to Ryan? Or Melissa? When I got back to the NICU, my baby was sleeping, his little chest rising and falling under the dim blue light. I sat beside him, my mind racing. If Ava was right, this wasn't just an affair. Something deeper was going on. Something dangerous. The next morning, my sister came in looking pale. "Someone's been calling my phone from an unknown number," she whispered. "They keep asking where you are." That was it. I couldn't stay in the dark anymore. I needed to know exactly what I was dealing with. That evening, I locked myself in the hospital's small conference room, plugged in the flash drive again, and went through every file. There were text exchanges between Ryan and Melissa, talking about money transfers, meeting with clients, and something about clearing accounts before the move. Then I found a video. Melissa in a hotel room, talking to Ryan on speakerphone. "Once she's out of the way, we can start fresh," Melissa said, smirking. "The cruise was just the beginning. She won't even see it coming." I gripped the table, bile rising in my throat. Out of the way. Before I could process it, I heard a faint beep. My phone lit up with a new message from Ava. "They know I talked to you. You're not safe. Neither is the baby." I rushed back to the NICU, my heart pounding. But when I got there, my baby's incubator was empty. For a moment I couldn't breathe. The NICU room spun around me, the soft beeping of machines now deafening in their absence. My baby's incubator empty. I stumbled toward the nurse's station, panic ripping through me. "Where's my baby?" My voice came out so sharp, so desperate, that two nurses stopped mid-conversation. "Ma'am, calm down," one of them said quickly, standing. "Your son was taken for additional tests in the pediatric imaging wing. They needed to run a scan." I clutched the edge of the counter, my legs weak. "You could have told me." "I'm sorry," she said, her tone softening. "It was urgent, but everything's fine. Dr. Lopez is with him." I nodded, pretending to relax, but inside something still felt wrong. If it was just a scan, why hadn't I been told immediately? I made my way to the pediatric imaging wing, my sneakers squeaking against the polished floor. The halls were dimmer here, quieter. Too quiet. When I reached the imaging room, the door was shut. I peeked through the small glass window and froze. Inside, my baby was on the table, swaddled, and a nurse I didn't recognize was leaning over him. She wasn't doing any scans. She was taking pictures with her phone. Chill shot through me. I pushed the door open so hard it slammed against the wall. "What are you doing?" shouted. The woman jerked upright, hiding her phone behind her back. I was just. "Who are you?" I demanded, stepping closer. Before she could answer, another voice spoke from the doorway behind me. Well, familiar. "Is there a problem here?" Turned. It was the man from last night, the one in the hoodie. His hood was down now, revealing short dark hair and a jaw clenched tight. The woman slipped past me, mumbling something about getting supplies. "I'm here for my baby," I said, my voice shaking but firm. "And if you come near him again." He cut me off with a faint smirk. "You really should be more careful who you trust, Emily." Hearing my name in his mouth made my stomach twist. "What do you want?" I demanded. He stepped closer, his voice low. "It's not what I want. It's what they want. And they're not going to stop until they have it." "They?" I asked, but he didn't answer. He simply looked at my baby for a moment, long enough to make my skin crawl, then walked away. I grabbed my son, cradling him close. My hands were trembling as I hurried back to the NICU, locking the door behind me. That night I called Ava, desperate for answers. She picked up on the second ring, her voice rushed and panicked. "You need to leave the hospital. Now." "Why? What's going on?" I whispered, glancing at my baby's tiny sleeping face. "They're watching you. Melissa isn't just here for Ryan. She's after something bigger. And if they think you're in the way..." Ava's voice broke. "They'll make you disappear." I swallowed hard. "What do they want from me?" Long pause. Then, "It's not from you. It's from him." Before I could ask what she meant, the line went dead. And then, my phone lit up with a text from Ryan himself. "I'm cutting the cruise short. We need to talk. Alone." I stared at Ryan's message, my grip tightening around the phone. "We need to talk. Alone." After everything I'd seen on Ava's flash drive, after the man in the hoodie, after Melissa's smirk in those photos, he wanted to meet alone. I didn't answer right away. My baby was still asleep, the soft hiss of oxygen filling the NICU. My mind was torn between two truths. I needed answers, and I couldn't trust him. I typed back slowly, "When? Where?" His reply came almost instantly. "Tomorrow night. The house. The house. The one we had shared. The one I hadn't stepped foot in since rushing to the hospital when my water broke." The thought of going back there made my stomach churn, but I knew I had to. If I wanted the truth, I had to look him in the eye. That night I barely slept. Every sound in the hospital hallway made me jolt awake. My dreams were filled with the image of Melissa's pregnant stomach and Ryan's voice whispering about starting fresh. By morning I had made up my mind. I'd go, but not without backup. Called my sister. "Don't ask questions," I told her. "Just wait in your car down the street from the house tomorrow. If I text you one word, run, you call the police." She agreed without hesitation, her voice tight with worry. The next evening, I left the baby in my sister's care at the hospital and drove to the house. The front porch light was on, but every window was dark. Inside, it smelled faintly of cologne and something sour, like wine gone bad. Ryan was in the kitchen, leaning against the counter with a glass of whiskey in his hand. He looked relaxed, but his eyes were sharp, watching me like a hawk. "You look tired," he said casually. "Hospital keeping you busy." I ignored the small talk. "Why did you want to meet?" He took a slow sip before answering. "Because you've been talking to people you shouldn't. People like Ava." My heart skipped a beat. "You know her." His smirk deepened. "Oh, I know her. She's a liar. She wants to ruin me. And now she's using you to do it." I crossed my arms. "Then why are there pictures of you and Melissa? Why is she pregnant?" For a split second, something flickered in his expression. Anger, maybe fear, but it vanished as quickly as it came. "You don't understand, Emily. It's complicated." "Make me understand," I said, my voice sharp. He set the glass down. "Melissa's pregnancy isn't mine. She's using it as leverage. She wants something from me. From us." I frowned. "Leverage for what?" He hesitated. "Money. A lot of it. She's involved with people who don't care who gets hurt. People who..." He stopped, his eyes darting toward the window. "What?" "Yes. Did you come alone?" Before I could answer, headlights swept across the living room wall. Car had pulled up outside. Ryan's face went pale. "It's them." A knock sounded at the door, Slow, heavy, deliberate. "Stay quiet," Ryan whispered. "Don't open it." But then a voice called from outside, muffled but chillingly familiar. "Emily. It's Melissa. We need to talk." Ryan's eyes went wide at the sound of her voice. "Don't answer it," he hissed, stepping toward me. But the knock came again, harder this time. "Emily," Melissa's voice sing-songed through the door. "You deserve to hear the truth from me." My pulse hammered in my ears. Every instinct told me to run, but another part of me needed to know what she'd say. Ryan grabbed my wrist. "She's dangerous. You let her in, we're both screwed." I yanked my arm free. "Funny, you didn't think she was so dangerous when you were on a cruise with her." Something flickered in his eyes. Guilt, then panic. "It's not what you think." I cut him off by walking to the door. When I opened it, Melissa stood there, her hair perfect, lips painted deep red. She wore a fitted black coat, and her hand rested casually on her small, rounded belly. Behind her, 2 large men in dark jackets stood like statues. "May I come in?" she asked sweetly. Ryan moved to block her. "You're not welcome here." She ignored him and stepped inside, her perfume sweeping into the air. Her eyes met mine, and a slow smile curved her lips. "You've been busy, Emily. What do you want?" I asked, my voice cold. She walked toward the kitchen, her heels clicking on the hardwood. "I want to make you an offer. One that might save your life." Ryan scoffed. "Don't listen to her. She's lying." Melissa turned to him, her smile fading into something sharper. "I'm not lying, Ryan. You didn't tell her everything, did you?" My stomach nodded. "Tell me what?" Melissa's gaze locked on mine. "Your loving husband has been laundering money for over a year. He used your name on the accounts, which means when the feds come knocking," she shrugged, "you're the one who's going to prison." My breath caught. "You're lying." Melissa reached into her coat pocket and tossed a manila envelope onto the table. "Bank statements, transfers, your signature, only you never signed." I flipped the envelope open with trembling hands. There was my name, my address, and a long list of transactions to offshore accounts. Ryan's voice broke the silence. "It's not what it looks like. I had no choice." Melissa smirked. "You always have a choice. You just chose the wrong woman to cross." Ryan stepped toward her, his voice low and dangerous. "Leave now." Her smile returned, slow and mocking. "Or what?" The 2 men behind her shifted slightly, their eyes locked on Ryan. And then, in one quick motion, Melissa turned back to me. "Emily, I can make this go away. Evidence. The accounts. But it'll cost you, and you won't like the price." I felt my phone in my pocket, my thumb brushing against the screen. My sister was parked just down the street. One word, run, and she'd call the police. Melissa leaned in closer, her perfume heavy, her voice a whisper only I could hear. "Think about your baby. You wouldn't want him to grow up without a mother." I clenched my jaw, my finger hovering over my phone. Ryan's voice broke through. "Emily, don't." And then, from outside, came the sudden wail of sirens. The sirens grew louder, flashing red and blue lights spilling through the front windows. Melissa's head snapped toward the door, her smirk faltering for the first time. Ryan stepped between us. "You called them," he hissed. I didn't answer. My thumb was still on my phone. I'd sent my sister the word run before Melissa even walked through the door. Melissa's 2 men moved quickly toward the back exit, but the sound of pounding boots on the porch told me the police were already surrounding the house. "Emily," Melissa said, her tone turning icy, "you've just made the biggest mistake of your life." "Funny," I said, stepping closer. "That's exactly what I was going to say to you." The front door burst open, and uniformed officers swarmed in, weapons raised. "Hands where we can see them," one barked. Melissa lifted her hands slowly, her red lips curling back into a half-smile as if she still had some invisible upper hand. "You don't know who you're dealing with," she said to me, her voice low. One officer moved to cuff her while another approached Ryan. "Ryan Carter, You're under arrest for wire fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy. Ryan's eyes went wide. Wait, no, you don't understand. The officer cut him off. We understand perfectly. We've been following the trail for months. Thanks to an anonymous tip. He glanced briefly at me. We got everything we needed. I looked at Melissa, who was glaring at me as if she could burn me alive with her eyes. Guess your cruise is over, I said softly. They led them both out in separate cars, their voices fading into the night. The house felt eerily quiet once they were gone. My sister rushed in moments later, her face pale. Are you okay? Is the baby? He's fine, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. We're both fine now. But the truth was I was shaking inside. Not from fear, but from the realization that this nightmare had almost taken everything from me. The next morning I was back at the NICU, holding my baby against my chest. His tiny hand curled around my finger, warm and soft. I told you, didn't I? I whispered to him. Mama's going to protect you. I thought about Ryan. His lies, his betrayals, his cruise with Melissa while our son fought for his life. I thought about how close he'd come to ruining me completely. But now, he was gone. She was gone. And I still had the one thing that mattered most. The beeping of the monitors faded into the background as I kissed the top of my baby's head. The air smelled of antiseptic and hope. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be court dates, lawyers, and questions from people who thought they knew me. But I also knew one thing for certain. I'd walked into hell and come out holding my son in my arms. And I was never, ever going to let anyone take him from me again.